good evening and welcome to Slovenia. It's Lead World Cup number 5 of the 2018 season. We're live in the legendary venue of Kranj. I'm Charlie Bosco, very pleased to say that not for the first time this season. I'm joined by Josh Levin in the commentary box, and we're just moments away from the start of the semi-final. In the qualifiers, it was all about Team Japan and it was all about Team Slovenia. Japan, 9 men through to today's semi-final. That was all their entrants, and the Slovenians got 8 of their women through. So, before we bring you the semi-final, let's have a quick recap of what took place this morning. Two weeks after the conclusion of the World Championships, the IFSC lead climbers got back into World Cup action in the Slovenian mountain town of Kranj. And who better to talk us through the men's qualifying routes than chief route setter for the competition, Christian Bindhammer.
We already know that it will be an intense round, not too easy qualification. It's not a really high wall here in Kranj, but still we started quite stiff from the beginning with some technical parts, left and right. So the climbers, you see already that they were a little bit nervous in the first part of the route. And then on the second part, it was more the power style climbing, but also without any resting, with quite difficult clipping, or not difficult, but intense, power-intense clipping. And this, sorted actually like that we got just one top. For the semi, I think that we are quite in a good way. So I would say for the semi there would be not too much to change, because we already knew that it was around this grade. Yeah.
As Christian alluded to, the round was tough and only 2 tops were claimed across the 61 starters. Max Rudiger got close on one route though and went easily through to semis. All 9 Japanese male entrants are also through after another excellent day for their team. Recently crowned world champion Jakub Schubert also got through with no fuss, having finished joint 3rd in qualifiers with Thomas Johan of France. Domen Skofitz topped the qualifying rankings with Jakub Konechny close behind in 2nd. In the afternoon, the women took their turn on the wall, and Jane Kim took the only top on Route 1, with Janja Garnbret the only climber to top number 2.
I'm really happy with the grade of the route, and one top in every route is perfect, in my opinion. And my climbing, yes, in the first route it was kind of a wrong decision at the top, wrong Vita, but yeah, I forgot that quite soon, and the second route was perfect. I was the only one who topped that route, and yeah, I felt good, and I'm looking forward to semis.
With Anak Verhoeven missing the event due to injury, the battle for the win seems likely to come down to Jane, Janja and Jessie Pilz. That said, a number of climbers looked capable of spoiling their party, with Anne-Sophie Koller and Manon Ili looking strong. Vita Lucan, 6 weeks after she was crowned Youth World Champion, was 6th in the Kranj qualifiers. Mina Markovic also went well, qualifying 7th in her hunt for a 5th Kranj win. Molly Thompson-Smith, still recovering from a devastating finger injury, also looked on form, qualifying in 10th place. Hannah Schubert had a brilliant day, qualifying 3rd. Full results can be found on the IFSC website, ifsc-climbing.org. And there we have it, 26 men and 26 women through. No big ties, so we have the regulation 26 on both sides, all gunning for 8 male and 8 female slots in the final, which will take place tomorrow night. This is how they line up for the women. I mentioned it at the top of the broadcast. 8 Slovenian women through into this semi-final. Lana Skusek will be first out, and the familiar name of Katja Kadic second out, and Lučka Rakovic a bit further down. Good day for Austria as well. Julia Fischer and Christine Stranz both through, and they're not the only ones. A bit lower down the order, third Austrian climbing will be Katarina Posch, Meikataki and Miho Nanaka sandwiched together there. Miho Nanaka fresh from her win at the Adidas Rockstars. Watch out as well for Natsumi Harano. Not a name that's familiar as perhaps Miho Nanaka, but Team Japan expecting big things from her, and Mina Markovic gunning for a 5th win in Kranj will climb 20th. And there we see Vita Lucan, Mia Krampel and Janja Garmret. I mentioned there were more Austrians as well. There is Jessie Pilt and Hannah Schubert. Hannah, absolutely fantastic day in the qualifiers. I also mentioned at the top of the broadcast, wry laugh from Josh Levin, and with good reason. 9 Japanese men through. They only brought 9 Japanese men, and they all made it through to the semi-final. None of them eliminated in the qualifiers, and we will have 6 of them climbing in a row. Yuki Hada will be out 17th. Sean McCall, good to see him back. Basti Halenka, winner here 2 years ago. He'll climb 15th. And then lower down the order, another familiar Austrian name, Jakob Schubert. And then he's 25th, Jakub Konechny. Watch out for him. Had a wonderful Innsbruck World Championships, and Domen Skofic. And his home turf will be climbing last, 26th and last. Climbers, of course, going in reverse order to how they qualified. So theoretically, we get the strongest climbers last. So Lana Skusek and Hanwoo Kim, first 2 climbers out, and Josh Levin with all the qualifying highlights, and me jabbering away. We haven't had a word. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Charlie.
And you climbed earlier on in the qualifying routes. It's quite an unusual wall here in Kranj, very featured, all sorts of different little nooks and crannies and corners. You described it as a cryptic wall.
Absolutely, yeah. It's definitely very different and a big contrast to some of the walls we've had earlier this season. The first 3 competitions we had, which were mostly in Western Europe, they featured a very, very standard style wall where it has exactly 3 angles. It goes somewhat overhanging, really overhanging, back to somewhat overhanging again. And then we have competitions like this in Arca that just totally buck the trend, where it's all sorts of bulges and bubbles and features you have to use. So the athletes really have to adapt to each of the different styles.
This is Lana Skusek. This is a bit of a tricky move, this one. A couple of ways of doing it. You can get the right hand there to that undercling, or some of the more confident climbers and taller climbers might just pop straight up to that one there. I think Lana could probably have done that, but took the slightly surer percentage option. We've lost Hanwoo Kim already, unfortunately. That was brief. I just saw it out the corner of my eye, somewhere in the region of the 4th quick draw. 43 handholds for the men, 42 for the women. The women's route looks longer. It veers from pretty much the middle of this wall here in Kranj all the way out to the left, and then finishes at the furthest left of the 3 tops. The design of the wall means there's only 3 places that you can actually finish a route, and the women finish all the way over to the left, the men finish all the way over on the right, but the men start on the right. So the women's route looks long, actually only 42 handholds. Plenty of encouragement for Lana, as you'd expect. 18 years old. And off to a really good start. Section through these pockets. Pretty physical, not super hard, not especially hard to read. Just begin to get tired. You could see it take a good long rest earlier on. She'll get moving again. You get some idea of the steepness of the wall there. Doesn't quite get to horizontal or past horizontal like in Arca, or at least the section of the wall we're using today doesn't. But it's pretty unrelenting, and this women's route looks pretty physical.
I'm talking to setters earlier, it looks like she's really hitting some of the harder moves, especially after the pockets. That's where the setters told us it really turned on with the difficulty.
You were saying as well, the qualifying route's quite hard to read.
That's correct, yeah. The qualifying routes, as opposed to the semifinal route where you have to do basically everything on site and you don't have anyone to watch, were much more cryptic. I had very bouldery moves, but these are a little bit more straightforward. Not to say that they're easier, but oh man, really good effort from Lana Skuchik.
Yeah, Lana got well past the first section of tricky moves. We're watching David Fernenberg now. Good to see him back in a World Cup semi-final.
Yeah, he had a really good qualification round earlier this morning. Another thing to keep in mind is that, at least for the men, we've been climbing, or at least awake, for quite a long time today. The men's qualification started at 8 a.m., which meant that the warm-up zone opened at 6 a.m., and if you're one of the first couple of climbers, that means you had to get up quite early this morning, which is definitely something that I was not looking forward to. So these climbers, even though it's their first route in quite a number of hours, it's been a very long day, specifically for the men.
See, David really got a fight on his hands here. He's having to work really hard. Pops up with the right hand now. You have to get that clip done before he gets too far. That one that's just by his left hand isn't the one. The next one he needs to clip. It's the one that's just sat across his left thigh. And I think he knew that the energy was running low, but it is, as I say, an early high point. Han-Woo Kim unfortunately falling much lower down. I think I can see which move it was where we would have lost Han-Woo Kim, because David Fernenberg looked like he really had to work hard with that big stab up with the right hand.
Yeah, that's one of the really interesting bouldery moves that the setters are incorporating into the lead routes this year. You have to take the left hand as a mantle and jump with your right hand and have to hold this pretty ridiculous swing out. And it looks like David did a really good job of executing that move.
This is Maëlys Agrippa of France, 22-year-old.
Yeah, so like I was mentioning earlier, Charlie, the semi-final right here today is definitely much more difficult as far as hardness of the climb, but the qualification routes earlier were much more, I would say, intellectually intensive. You have to really think through all the different moves, and it's because you're allowed to watch your competitors climb and see an actual demonstrator of the route that they're able to give you much more cryptic movement in the qualification round. So one of the things we actually heard from the setters earlier this year is they like to give you some sort of interesting cryptic movement in the qualification round so you're familiar with it, and then they'll give you something similar or even almost the same in the semifinal or final round so you're prepared for it and it gives the audience a good show.
Yoshiyuki Ogata of Team Japan's just getting underway. Bottom right of this Kranj wall.
Yoshiyuki's having a pretty good season so far. He made finals in the Munich Bouldering World Cup just less than a month ago.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it's 2 months since we had a lead World Cup.
Yeah, it's been quite a bit of time.
It's just 2 weeks on from Innsbruck. It's been a pretty non-stop period as Maëlys just about hangs on to that. The route setters think that going with the right hand is probably the way to go on that pinch. She didn't like it at all and tries to match and can't quite find a way. And she looks back up pensively, unsure what to make of that one. Let's keep an eye on Yoshiyuki Ogata. He's through that tough move up with the right hand. It's where it just below his right foot now. That's the hold where I think we lost Han-Woo Kim. A score of 8 for him. Yoshiyuki looked like that was in the balance for just a second, but finds a way. Kaci Kadic will be the next climber out on the women's side.
Yeah, Yoshiyuki's pretty strong so far. He's had really good results in bouldering. Let's see if he can follow it up with a really good result in lead here.
Yeah, the hair's getting bigger and bigger as well. I mean, it's every time we see him on a World Cup, it's got bigger. It's Sideshow Bob-esque now.
You can't deny he's got style.
I'm only jealous. So yeah, he's entering not only a pretty physical section of the route here, but there's quite a tricky little section that the route where the body position of the climbers will never get less than vertical, but there's a bit where the wall just tilts away, and you'll see what I mean a bit higher up. It's kind of a mini slab, and although it won't feel like a slab, it just gets a bit technical after another 4 or 5 moves from where Yoshiyuki is.
Yeah.
I think, like David Fernenberg, you can see just how hard he's having to work though, pulling hard up to these moves, slapping for the holds. They're reasonably good holds.
Yeah, they're pretty slippery, I think, for the texture, and oh, he just lost Yoshiyuki. Good effort from him. But actually the area that he was on, it's really difficult to see, but from forward facing, it looks like it's almost vertical, but it's actually like almost 20 degrees overhanging from what it looks like here. So it doesn't let up as far as steepness, even when you get to the very top of the wall.
So here's Katja. Quietly gets on with the business, Katja Kadic. She's not one of those people that wants to always be getting interviewed and being on TV and everything. She just quietly gets on with it, but producing increasingly impressive results. We know all about her bouldering, but her lead is looking pretty impressive. And as I say, she just quietly gets on with it.
Yeah, it's really impressive to see. Actually, right now we have the two dominant forces in climbing right now, the women's Slovenian team and the men's Japanese team. And it's cool to see them both at least climbing at the same time. So Katja doing really well, getting through this roof section with the pockets. And as we've been saying, like, this wall is heavily featured, very unique. It definitely helps to have experience on these types of walls. So if you've competed here as a Slovenian at national cups or even before here at World Cups, it gives you a huge advantage over other competitors who've never climbed on these walls before.
And what's the friction of the actual wall structure like? Because it's very featured, I mean, much more so than just a blank piece of wall. Hold on, I'll resume in a second. I just want to watch Katja from pretty close up, just trying that cross-through move. As I said, that women's route does get very physical very quickly.
Yeah, that cross-through move is definitely going to be a make or break point for a lot of competitors. But the friction on the wall, I would say it's okay. It's not wonderful, it's not bad. But yeah, here's the mental move that is going to be really tricky for a lot of competitors. Oh man, oh no!
And that is why it's going to be tricky. If you start to rotate and that rotation speeds up,
yep,
you're in big trouble.
It looked like he had it really controlled, and then his right foot just popped off.
Yeah, sadly, it was only a very brief look at Taito Nakagami. There he is.
Yeah, he's been climbing really strong this year in the Lead World Cups.
Yeah, had a good Moscow as well in the Youth World Championships. Now we can see the wall here in Kranj. It's kind of set back. Quite an unusual wall in that it doesn't stick out into the venue. The venue sticks out to accommodate it. This competition and the wall itself, of course, the brainchild of Tomo Czezen, the legendary Slovenian climber, still runs the competition. Still looks like he'd be pretty handy on the rock himself.
Yeah, this is actually my very first time here in Kranj at the World Cup, and from watching Lead World Cups for so many years, this place is one of the most legendary venues in competition climbing. They've been having Lead World Cups here for how many years now?
We were debating whether this was number 23 or 24.
Goodness, yeah, just about as many as I've been alive. But yeah, for me, like watching specifically the climbing film progression was a really big turning point in me getting excited about competing at Lead World Cups, and seeing someone like with some of the top climbers that were competing there during the day. Oh goodness, wow. He's clipping with one hand.
Yes, Taisei Homer living slightly dangerously.
Yeah.
Evgenia Kazbekova on the on the women's route.
Yeah, but seeing some of the top World Cup competitors climbing on these same walls, albeit a little bit changed from the past decade or so, is a really interesting dynamic, because just the fact that this wall has so much history behind it. So moving through these triangles here, we're seeing just how tricky the bottom section of this men's route really is. It requires a lot of friction and body tension in order to make sure that you're setting yourself up for this mental move correctly.
Yeah, he needs to be really careful here. He'll be aware, I'm sure, whether how much of it he saw, we don't know, but the fact that he was out so quickly would have made him realize it was a very hard move low down, and we lose Evgenia Kazbekova low down. just beginning to enter that horizontal section. He's done that really nicely, Taisei Hama. He's really kept everything in control. As I say, the fact he was out so quickly, regardless of what he saw on the wall, would have told him there was a hard move somewhere low down that he needed to be careful with. He's not only spotted it, he's got it right. Charlie Bosco and Josh Levin here, live from Kranj, in the, at the foot of the Triglav National Park here in Slovenia. Wonderful part of the world, and as Josh said, it's a very traditional stop on the IFSC calendar. Been coming here for over 20 years.
Absolutely. And just as I was saying earlier, this wall is so unique and varied that having experience here definitely helps. From earlier in the qualification round, just from watching some of the, especially Slovenian competitors, use some of these really tiny features on the wall. It was like right before I climbed even in the qualification, I was changing my beta just based on exactly where these competitors were putting their feet, putting their hands, using tiny micro features of the wall that otherwise you look at it and you never assume there's actually a hold there. So be on the lookout for especially some of the Slovenian climbers to be using holds that would not necessarily be considered holds at many other World Cups.
Iva Vejmelova now of Czech Republic just got underway. We caught a glimpse of her on the women's route. This is Taisei Hama, the second of 6 Japanese climbers who will be climbing in succession in this Kranj semi-final. Kokoro Fujikai Harada, Masahiro Higuchi still to come. We've already had Yoshiyuki Ogata, Taito Nakagami, and we're currently watching Taisei Hama.
This is a tricky move, as we've seen earlier. Those holds are not quite as in-cut as you want them to be.
Now we lost Yoshiyuki around here. It's a tricky combination of having to be dynamic but also in control. It's definitely going to prove one of the cruxes, that stab up with the left hand. And the technical section that I mentioned earlier is just above that. Here's Iva on going up via the undercling with the right hand. As I say, you can go direct, but you need to be tall and you need to be very confident. She did it the solid way. Looking pretty controlled so far. She's got to just launch up to that pinch above, ideally with the right hand, so that the left hand's then free to come out into the roof. And then it just doesn't really let up from there on out. We haven't seen anyone quite make their way onto the very top section of the wall here, but we've seen a couple of climbers, including Kaci Kadic, have a really good stab at the moves out left.
Yeah, so you can see she's using the red there just briefly, whereas I think some of the other Slovenian climbers instinctually knew just to grab it right away, just because it's such a natural feature for them. If you have experience on these walls, it definitely plays an advantage into how you're able to figure out utilizing the wall surface in order to get up to the wall.
Hashtag IFSCWC if you want to get in touch. 26 men and 26 women battling it out here in Kranj. Charlie Bosco and Josh Levin bring it to you, and we've got the final for you tomorrow night as well.
Another interesting tidpoint would be these longer clips here. We saw earlier in the qualification round that it's possible to climb quite far past them and still be able to clip them from a distance. I think one of the standout performances was Max Rudiger. He climbed much further than anyone expected to be able to clip one of the lower quick draws that was really long, and he was able to pull it back together and nearly top the qualifier out.
That's a really good effort there from Ida. She was going well, had that massive yellow volume with the right hand. It's just a series of pretty poor crimps, and then you're into a load of compression moves above, but that was a really decent go from her. We're just waiting for her score to come through. This is Kokoro Fuji.
And Kokoro, as a boulderer, made that mantle move look quite easy. You can see him using that very small crimp there to be able to stabilize himself going into these next series of moves.
It's slightly easier perhaps for a taller climber like Kokoro.
Yeah, and especially today I've found that being a shorter climber was a little bit more difficult than normal on these routes. They were definitely, as we say in climbing, morpho. They were very much geared towards taller competitors, with a handful of exceptions. There was one move where you had to get your foot up quite high, which definitely favored the shorter athletes. But in general, like, the routes here are quite reachy.
Eloise Dumont just got underway on the women's route. You can see her there on the left. Women climbing on the left of the two routes. It's effectively the middle of the wall, and then they move all the way out to the left. You can see those now familiar holds. Kokoro Fuji and the rest of the men going pretty much straight up the right-hand side of the wall, but somehow the route setters have squeezed 43 holds, hand holds onto the men's route and 42 onto the women's.
Ooh, really good bump from Kokoro. This is the high point so far.
Yeah, Kokoro looking super strong, but you can see just how much effort is going into this. Remember, he's got to clip every quick draw in sequence. He can't leave one behind. And this is the section I was talking about where it just gets a little bit technical. Not much for the feet. You've got to try and find some way of not being in the position that Kokoro's in for too long. And sadly for him, the way he exited that position was by falling. But as Josh said, a new high point set. Lana Skusek, the first climber out, still with the high point on the women's side.
Another interesting point that we missed with Kokoro's climb, but very, very tricky movement that he made going just over the lip. There was a small crimp that he bumped to with his left hand that had a blocker hold on, which they've been using quite frequently in these recent competitions. So that way you have to be even more accurate than normal, trying to get your finger in just the right position. He made it look easy, but I would imagine it's going to maybe cause some trickiness or definitely some extra effort added for some other competitors.
So Eloise Dumont, here's Kai Harada, the world champion in bouldering, crowned in Innsbruck.
Eloise looking really strong here. She got up into this pinch, no problem.
Yeah, we don't have her compatriot, Annette Verhoeven. I mentioned it on the qualifying highlights. Had an elbow injury, and although she took part in Innsbruck, she just didn't feel she could quite give her best in the remaining 3 World Cups of the season. So sadly, we won't be seeing Anak again. But Belgium do have Eloise Dumont competing here. As sole representative on the women's side. Sadly, none on the men's.
Yeah, she's looking really comfortable in these roof pockets. Hopefully she can remember to turn it on when it gets to the tricky part in a couple moves from here.
Yeah, she's got this quite big move up to the yellow volume. There it is. And then out left, a series of crimps, and you just got to keep on cranking.
This move. Nice. Ah, she made that look really good. As a competitor, it's always tricky to figure out when to switch from kind of a flowing route style to trying to try really hard for some of the bouldery sequences we have up on these routes. She's done a really good job so far of fighting when she needs to and preserving energy when she needs to do that.
Yes, she's been setting a really nice pace here. That is a hard move up to the left. But that's a really good effort from Eloise Dumont. As you said, just seemed to measure the pace right. Well, how does the country song go? You've got to know when to rack them and know when to stack them.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. I barely understand the lyrics of most country songs, but it's something along those lines.
Sure.
It's Kai Harada, as I say, crowned bouldering champion in Innsbruck.
Don't forget, though, he was also in the lead finals, so he's no stranger to clipping some quick draws here.
No, and he was also in the combined final. I think it was 19 hours after winning the gold in the bouldering.
Absolutely.
I have to say it was a slightly weary-looking Kai Harada who we saw in the combined final, but as you say, he's a World Championship finalist in 2 disciplines and World Champion in 1.
Yeah, and that was the move I was mentioning earlier where you can have to bump to that very tricky hold. Oh, good effort from Kai.
Is that perhaps a slight route reading error?
I would think actually more maybe of a pacing error. I think he was trying to rush that move a little bit, and you have to be really accurate on those pockets. So I think maybe if he'd paced himself a little bit and had a little more accuracy for that pocket, he would have done really well. But really good effort from Kai. That's the 2nd highest point we've seen so far. Great climbing from him, not just today, but overall this season, especially bouldering world champion. He was in world championship finals for lead. Not a bad speed climber either. I got to race him in Chamonix. That was a lot of fun.
Here's Ellen Janicot of France, part of the route setting team in Chamonix, but we'd rather see her climbing in the semi-finals and the finals. But interesting to see even current athletes trying their hand in the route setting. Speaking to the team there, they were pretty pleased to have her.
Yeah, it's always great to see her doing a lot of different, wearing different hats, so to speak. But also, yeah, especially, we know there's not very much representation in route setting for women right now, so I think it's great to have her not only being able to have really great results in her own competition, but also route setting, and hopefully getting more women encouraged to start doing some route setting themselves to help out, figure out how to create better routes suited for women. Yeah,
it's something we get asked about a lot at the IFSC. Why aren't there more women setters? And we would love to have more women setters, and every time we have them, they add a huge amount. So to aspiring IFSC route setters out there, get involved. Just movements getting slightly more jerky from Ellen. Didn't take a huge pause. She's not going to have much opportunity to rest for the next dozen or so moves. This section really separating the climbers. After these pockets, you got the big move up to the yellow volume, and then that really brutal cross-through move out to the left.
She looks pretty relaxed here in the roof, so that's a good thing. And again, it's all about the pacing here. You have to be able to flow through these roof moves, but then remember that as soon as it turns the lip, it gets a lot harder.
Yeah, she was measuring it nicely. She looked slightly rushed a bit lower down, but she just seems to have composed herself slightly.
It's a tenuous heel hook she's had. Oh, wow, going left hand there.
It's a new method, but it's hard to imagine how she might extricate herself from that position. Sadly, she couldn't find a way, so we lose Ellen Janicot. Luchka Rakovets, next woman out on the wall. Here's Masahiro Higuchi, the sixth of six successive Japanese climbers on the route. Minoru Nakano, the next Japanese climber. He'll be the 11th one on the wall, just to give you some kind of idea where we're at. Masahiro is the 8th climber. So it's just approaching a third of the way through the men's semi-final. Only 28 minutes gone. It's been a pretty quick semi-final, actually. And Luchka, the 8th woman out. So as it is, the men going slightly quicker, primarily down to a couple of very low falls on that hard move up with the right hand.
Yeah, and these walls specifically are quite a bit more bouldery, just because they're shorter and more overhanging than other Lead World Cups we've seen. So compared to somewhere like Chamonix, the route time that people are spending on the wall is going to be much less than other World Cups. You can just see how terrible those holds actually are from this angle. They're not very uncut, they're pretty slopey, and they're not even on a relatively flat section of wall. It's a little bit overhanging there, so these competitors are having to try very hard in this section. Yeah, this is actual just really good competition wherewithal to realize that you can have this foothold over on that bulge over there. It's something that you have to be able to read in the moment unless they saw it during the preview, but it's a part of the wall. It's something that you have to be able to kind of see on the fly, and he did a really good job seeing that you could actually use that feature. Good effort from him.
Yeah, new high point on the men's route, I think, from Masahiro. Here is Luchka. 8 Slovenian women into the semi-final. Amazing day for them. And unusually enough, we won't have a Slovenian woman out last. We'll have Janja Garnbret second to last out. She qualified second.
And yet again, another example of having the top 2 teams right now, the Slovenian women's team and the Japanese men's team on the wall at the same time. It's just really shows you how dominant both of these groups have been over the course of not just today, but the whole season.
We might have time, hopefully, in the cleaning break to discuss your opinion on why that might be. It's the question that everyone asks, why are they so good? There's a lot to it.
Oh, yes.
We're going to need a good long cleaning break to get through all this. Here's Luchka. And as soon as that left hand missed, you didn't really feel she could recover. That's a shame for her. Fedir Samoilov, here he is, just got underway on the men's route. Luchka looking pretty disappointed. As I say, that left hand missed. And it looked a pretty tough position to stay in. Fedir just got that first jump done. That pop-up that he did with the left hand, not a hard move. The route setters were saying they'd done it in trainers while they were testing it, but it's just enough to make you a bit nervous. Apparently there is the option for the bravest of the brave to take a running jump onto the start of the route, but given that the move isn't actually that tough, it's just a bit of a head game, you might be well advised to save the showmanship and just do it the steady way.
For any of the American viewers watching out there, trainers actually means tennis shoes.
Sorry, the sneakers. Sneakers, yeah.
Fedir looking really strong here.
Yeah, you also looked at me like I had two heads when I said I had a jumper on. A sweater.
We'll have to use a translate button.
Exactly, just get on Google Translate. Gets us around China. Here's Julia Fieser of Austria. What a good day they had, particularly over on the women's side. 5 women through. Keep an eye out for Anna Schubert. She went so well in the women's qualifying. 3rd place for her coming into the semi-final. She'll climb 3rd to last.
Yeah, shout out to Julia and the Austria team for giving me a ride from Innsbruck all the way down here to Kranj earlier this weekend.
That's a long way.
Yeah, very nice of them. Fedir is having pretty good last 2 years of Lead World Cups. He started out 2017 with a bronze medal in Vilar and has been pretty consistently in the semi-final, if not the final, in a lot of the World Cups since then.
Yeah, I think the fact that he had such a good result, as you say, in the first World Cup of 2017, people kind of expected that was the way it was going to be, and so it looks like his results have been a bit disappointing, but actually if you look at them, they've been pretty solid.
Yep. He's 5th place in China last year as well.
He's got this tough move up here. What method will he use? Looks like he's lining up to bump it across, but he can't quite find it. Looked like he was quite accurate on the hold.
Yeah. I think with that move, though, you not only need to be accurate, but you need to have enough bend in the elbow to absorb the impact. So I think if your arm is a little bit more straight, it's a little bit difficult to absorb just how much force is going through that hand and that movement.
Such are the margins at World Cup semi-final level. Jim Pope's going to be climbing next, 10th climber on the men's route. We're focusing now on Julia Fieser of Austria. And a bit like we saw from Elenjenico, bumping quickly and slightly jerkily through those moves towards the roof, and now just slows it down a bit. The last thing she needs, though, is that awkward clip, and she still hasn't got it done. And it's just lying on her chest. So frustrating when the quick draw's swinging in front of your face like that, and you just can't find a way to get the rope through it.
I've seen quite a few climbers take the quick draw and clip it into the rope, as opposed to what she did there, which was clip the rope into the quick draw. So with these longer quick draws, sometimes a different strategy is required, but she was able to get through it. Hopefully she's able to put that in her mind and climb smoothly through the rest of this roof section.
Yeah, I was about to say, you just saw a tiny bit from Julia. It might seem like a very small detail, but the fact that if you don't grab them quite right, they then swing, can cost you a lot of time and a lot of energy.
Absolutely. And this is the really difficult section up here with the cross under move.
It looks like she's going for it with the crossover. I think it was Elenjenico who went with her left hand to there.
That was really good.
Really nicely done. Again, slightly awkward clip. Chooses to get it done before it became any more awkward.
Nice.
A lot of shouting coming from Team Austria, but it was that big slap up with the left hand to that big hold that looks like a big block of cheese that was causing her problems. Here's Jim Pope. 3 Brits in the semi-final today. Big shout out to him, Will Bosey and Molly Thompson-Smith. Great day for all of them.
Really good move from Jim.
Yeah, Jim did really well to hang on to that. It looked like it could end in tears. Right foot.
Yeah.
If it had gone another couple of inches, that could have been curtains.
Yeah. And something interesting he did actually was place his left foot just smeared on the wall to stop the rotation a little bit, and that's something that it's a pure experience move. With these kind of moves where you're going up with the mantle with one hand and grabbing another hole with your other hand, and you have this external rotation, being able to counter that rotation in any way possible is really important, and you can just see how much experience Jim's had competing in both senior and junior competitions over the course of his career.
It's hard to believe. Only turning 20 this year, but he's quite an experienced competitor, as you say.
Competing in the youth circuit, especially European Youth Cups, has been really key for a lot of current competitors' success.
Been all over Europe this summer. Jim competing at IFSC World Cups, had 3 weeks in Flatanger as well in Norway. It's not a bad life. Not a bad summer holiday for a student.
And they're really excited today, having both Jim as well as Molly Thompson-Smith and also Will Bosey here in the semifinal. I think it's the first time all 3 have qualified for a semifinal together, so they're all really excited to compete here.
Jim just slightly powered out as he came over the roof there.
Good fight from him though.
Yeah, really good, and did really well to hang on to that move up with the right hand. Stopped a few climbers. Second Austrian in a row on the women's route, Christine Schranz. Just give us a little insight. You travelled over from Innsbruck with Team Austria.
Yeah.
People may think that travelling the world with the IFSC is a very glamorous life, and in some ways it is. It's wonderful, but what's it like travelling over here as a team, just cramped in the back of a little minibus?
I mean, we had 3 buses, so that was quite nice. But yeah, it was comfortable. I don't have anything to complain about. It was quite nice of the team to offer me a ride. I think the thing that you don't really see behind the scenes is that how just welcoming all the different teams are, especially to federations where athletes have to provide their own transportation and getting around. I'm only one of 2 Americans here at this competition, and sometimes it's difficult to figure out all your own travel arrangements. But with some of the bigger federations like the Austrians, the Slovenians, they're not just great climbing federations, but oh no.
And that is a shame for Christine Schranz. She's looked somewhere close to her very best at times in 2018. It's not gone her way here in Kranj. Minoru Nakano now gets underway on the men's route, and Manon Ili will be the next and 11th climber out on the women's route.
You can see him using one of the features there. But, okay, so he's made the first move. As I was saying, though, yeah, the federations are very hospitable, especially to climbers that are trying to make their travel plans on their own. So I'm very thankful to have this great community of climbers from all over the world. Just great experience to be on the World Cup circuit with all these incredible athletes and incredible people.
Is Manon Ili fired out of the blocks earlier on in 2018 in the lead season. With 3 World Cups to go. Just finding that momentum again. Minoru Nakano, as you could see, on that tricky move up with the right, stabilised. He's on his way again.
This is unofficial results. To so neuradni rezultati moškega polfinala. Seveda najboljši še čakajo na svoje nastope, videli
So we've seen 2 Japanese athletes climb really high so far. let's see if he can match their performance here tonight.
There is Manon. Had 4 lead World Cups in the space of 4 weeks back in July. Worst place finish of her for 11 was 11th. She made 2 of the finals. Innsbruck didn't quite go her way. 17th, made the semi-final, but might have been hoping for slightly more. Here she's in Kranj, lead World Cup number 5 of 2018. Two more still to come. We've got Wujiong and Xiamen at the end of October. Hoping not to have a repeat of the typhoon that we experienced last year.
Yeah, it'll be a different time actually, going back to China, especially since we've had Kranj early this year and China a little bit later this year. So a little bit different conditions, I think. But back on the wall, we have 2 athletes making their way through this first roof section.
Manon, just to let you know, has just got herself slightly tangled with the rope. There you can see it. Looked like it cost her a bit of energy. Just see her shaking out. Needs to get this clip done.
She looks really comfortable
slow
there.
It down, yeah. Yeah, as I say, she just got herself, got the rope on the wrong side of her arm, and it looked like it just flustered her slightly.
Yeah, it's interesting to see some of the athletes in their approach to this roof section, especially on the women's side, as we see both athletes just cresting over the top. This is a really hard move from the men. Oh, just lost him.
That's a disappointing result for Minoru. He was looking pretty strong in the qualifiers. He was the 3rd highest ranked Japanese climber on the men's side out of 9. Let's focus now on Manon Ili. She's done that cross-through move with relative ease. We've seen that move stop a lot of climbers now. She's got a really tricky position from which to clip. It's not bad, that left hand, but you've got to hold it with such a bent arm. It's just really not a comfortable position at all. Now she's got the big move out left to the big block of cheese.
Oh, she barely grabbed that. As you can see, there's 2 different parts to it. She grabbed the bad part in the left first and then immediately bumped a little bit more to the right. You can see it's better. And this is a high point so far. She's doing really good.
Oh, yeah, that is a great effort from Manon Ili. You could see her getting tired, but just kept fighting. Got a couple more moves after the pump really kicked in, and that is a new high point. She'll take the lead. Of course, we want the top 8 through. You can see on the right-hand side of your screen some of these Slovenian coaches and climbers appearing on national TV on an advert that's been playing on loop for much of the day in the venue. Here's Marcello Bombardi.
A really strong Italian climber. He was in the finals here at this venue last year. So definitely don't count him out of your predictions for how this event's going to go down.
Yeah, 2018 hasn't gone as well for him as 2017 did. But he had a slightly disappointing time in Innsbruck, but as you say, definitely capable of making the final here. First things first, though, he's got to negotiate this move. The more controlled you can do it, the better.
See if he gets his left foot up. Oh wow, he's getting his left foot up high on the volume. Interesting. Oh.
And there was a slight swing, just accompanied by your very realistic kind of door creaking open noise. But he managed to control it.
It's been interesting though, because we've seen the men place their left foot in a number of different places. We saw Jim Pope earlier put his foot down into the left of that volume, whereas Marcello here, he actually put his foot on top of the volume. Required a little bit more flexibility, but I think a little bit more control. So it's interesting to see how these competitors approach this move depending on their strengths, their weaknesses, flexibility, preferences, climbing style, etc. This is what he really, I think, excels at, just like pure power roof climbing. Very, very strong competitor.
Yeah, I mean, you only need to look at Marcello Bombardi, and you learn a little bit about his climbing.
Yeah, he looks very relaxed here.
Meiko Taki's just got underway on the women's route. She's the 12th climber out. Only Miho Nanaka to come, and then we're going to have the cleaning break.
Let's see if he can dial it in here. This is the part where it really turns on. Oh man, made it look super easy. Okay, here's the tricky move to the blocked hold. Oh, he's crossing. Wow. That was an interesting move.
Nice problem to have, having power in excess for Marcello Bombardi.
Oh my goodness.
Problem is now he's perhaps got himself slightly tangled up because he could do with having his right hand where his left is, so he might pay for his creativity, ironically. And so it proved. Slightly frustrating because he did the move really nicely, but it then cost him one move further on.
Exactly. It might have worked out potentially because each of those slots, it is possible to match. It's just the body positioning, especially in that steepness of an overhang, is quite difficult. And the slots themselves are not positive. They don't have an in-cut. They're pretty flat, so it requires a lot of body tension and opposition of your body to make sure that you're staying opposed to those basically like flat edges.
Here's Meiko Taki. High point was set by the climber out before her, Mano Ili.
She might have wanted to refresh her bib.
That bib doesn't look like it's got long left. I don't think she'll get called for a technical for that. And again, these clips just causing problems. You can see her faffing about.
So according to the setters, the best place to clip that quick draw was right where she did from that pocket. She made it look quite easy.
Yeah, and at first glance it looks an awkward clip because you kind of put the quick draw kind of straight in front of your face.
Yeah.
But actually, as you say, that's how the route setters say it's best clipped.
And it'll be interesting to see, especially who qualifies for the finals, top 8 tonight, how the clipping in this roof section is going to affect that. And the more efficiently you get through it, how much more energy you have to make just one extra move up higher on the wall.
Here is May, looking, I have to say, very composed at this stage. Tricky bit now will be what happens when those feet come off. Now then, like Mano Ili, she initially went for the left-hand side of that hold and then bumped onto the top section of it. Francesco Vetterati's just got underway on the men's route. This is going to be a new high point here from Meiko Taki. So series of quite complicated moves through these star volume. And as she makes her way back down, that might be a slightly disappointing one. Looked like that physically there was a bit left there.
Yeah, she definitely looked the strongest out of anyone who's gotten that far so far. And at that point, again, with each angle change, the difficulty not necessarily increases, but changes, and you have to adapt with how much pressure you're putting in your hands, your feet, your body. And so going back from a roof back into a slight overhang, back into a roof, you have to adapt really quickly. And I think being able to keep your body tension and your feet on correctly through those moves is actually one of the surprisingly tough mental challenges these competitors have to face.
This is Francesco Vetterati, second Italian climber in a row. Stefano Ghisolfi still to come. Miho Nanaka's getting underway as well. Interestingly enough, I was chatting to a member of the Japanese coaching team. I was even, just 1 second, I just watched Francesco through this section. He's just about to talk about Miho Nanaka's shoulder problem. I think Francesco's height coming in quite handy there. As you mentioned earlier on, it's a bit closer to that crimp.
Yeah, it was really good accuracy from Francesco right there. And as you can see, he's kind of hesitating on these slots just because of how bad they are in this overhang. But he's got the body position correct. He has his hands correct. He just needs to really commit to these moves and execute. really good drop knee from him here.
He made the final here in Kranj last year. Can he do it again in 2018? He's setting a new high point as we speak.
Yeah, he's looking really strong. This is easily the best climb we've seen so far on the men's side. Wow.
It looked like he was slightly caught between a couple of possible methods there, Francesco, but that's a brilliant effort and a new high point, and the men's route is about to get a clean. We're halfway through the men's semi-finals. I was about to say about Miho Nanaka. I was chatting to a member of the Japanese team earlier, and I said, is it a good idea for her to be climbing? And they said, maybe not, but they're not actually 100% what the exact nature of the injury is. They haven't had it fully assessed. She feels able to climb. Last weekend she was carrying the injury and she won the Adidas Rockstars, so there you go. If that's her being hindered, watch out, world. But yeah, we don't actually have a definite diagnosis of the injury. The last thing she needs is the carabiner just getting caught horizontally in the sling of the quick draw.
I don't think I've ever seen that before. That was surprising.
Not to mention quite annoying for Miho Nanaka, I would have thought. Yeah, but as I said, they're not entirely sure what the injury is. It's certainly causing her some pain and causing her some problems and some slight hesitation on some moves, but she's well enough to climb.
Yeah.
And she will go back to Japan at the start of next week and see the specialist.
Yeah, I mean, she's a phenomenal athlete, as we've seen in bouldering, even in lead this year at the World Championships, and also in speed. She's very, very quick, very good contender for the Olympic overall. But as someone who's also been through shoulder injuries and subsequent surgery myself, I wish her best of recovery with the shoulder. It's always tricky to know exactly what kind of injury it's going or how it's going to turn out, especially with shoulders. They're so hit and miss. I had a very specific type of shoulder injury that required surgery, but I do know another American athlete who had almost the exact same type of injury but did not require surgery. So here's hoping. Oh, we just lost Miho.
That's a disappointing one for Miho. Lost a lot of energy, I suspect, with that slightly awkward clip.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if there's anything going to come out of it. But yeah, as I was saying, with shoulder injuries, hopefully, it's because we've seen her climb so well, even through the injury right now. I would guess and hope that it's nothing serious, and she'll just have to take a little bit of time off over the off season. I'll be back to full strength as soon as the next season starts.
She just coming back from a day's climbing, or from a couple of early ones at the pub. Welcome to Kranj. Charlie Bosco and Josh Levin are here, talking you through this semi-final. We are exactly halfway through on the men's side and halfway through on the women's. That's how it stands right now. We've just seen Francesco Vetterata set a new high point. Familiar sight of multiple Japanese flags towards the opposite top of the order. 13 men and 13 women have been, and the same number still to go on the route. That's how it stands right now. Hanwoo Kim, sadly, we lost very low down, and Taito Nakagami falling on that tough move up with the right hand. Will Bosi will be the next climber out.
Yeah, Will's been climbing extremely strong recently. He came off of World Cup final in Chamonix. He made semifinals at the Adidas Rockstars competition last weekend, and I believe yesterday or 2 days ago he did his first 8C boulder ascent, Practice of the Wild in Magic Woods. So he's looking very, very strong right now. And also he's openly adamant that he considers himself a quote-unquote speed climber right now. He's been training very hard with speed, getting down the low 7-second time range, and definitely looking to break into the Olympic combined format very, very soon.
That is pretty impressive from a speed climber.
Oh, yes.
I'm happy to be proved wrong, but I'm not sure Reza has climbed 8C boulder problem.
Oh, well, you never know.
You never know.
You never know. The Iranian climbing team is very, very strong, so you never know. Could surprise us all.
Okay, Josh, I mentioned it earlier on, if timing allowed. Treat this as 2 questions if you want, or 1 if you feel that there's a lot of overlap to the answers. Why are Slovenia and Japan so strong?
That is an excellent question, and something that
it might take a while to answer, but as you can see, we have the cleaning break, so
got plenty of time.
Geek out.
I'll try not to bore you guys, but yeah, this is something that I've been really curious about in terms of performance of athletes, especially in climbing, of course, over the last couple of years. With the stylistic changes that we've been going through in competition, I would say over the last 3 or 4 years specifically, it's gotten a little more gymnastic, a little more boulder intensive, especially the lead side. And in bouldering too, you've seen a lot of changes from maybe just pure climbing on holds to then climbing on volumes, and now we have these really, really gymnastic movements and much more tricky sequences the athletes have to figure out. So how each country, each athlete specifically adapts to these challenges has proven to be quite an interesting path to follow. And so far, we've seen 2 countries kind of emerge as the dominant strength in both of these areas, Japan and Slovenia. And so right now, we're seeing specifically the Japanese men's team, not to discredit the Japanese women's team, and the Slovenian women's team, not to discredit the Slovenian men's team, which is also very, very strong, as kind of the 2 most dominant forces that at least I've recognized in lead and bouldering so far. And why that is always a kind of a tricky debate or question. And I think it comes down to a lot of different factors. There's never one specific thing that will tell you exactly why they're the best or the strongest in a certain way. But for me, actually, it's been a cool year in 2018 so far, actually physically getting to go to all these different countries and seeing kind of how each of the teams trains or how they approach competitions in general. And I think the first stop for me was actually going to the Boulder and Speed World Cup in Moscow, which of course we had a really cool event there, a lot of fun. But for me, that was the first time getting to see the Russian team train. And if you haven't been following, the Russian team is the most dominant in the world right now in speed climbing and have been so for many, many years. So for me, that was the first kind of question that I was able to ask myself, like, okay, well, we know that the Russian team is really good at speed climbing. Why is that? And, you know, it comes down to a lot of different factors. They have, you know, good federation that supports them in speed and sport in general. But when I was there, I actually got to see kind of a tiny insight into maybe why they're so good at specifically speed climbing. And what I got to see was that during one of their youth team practices, it was just like a regular climbing team, no affiliation with the national team or anything. It's just like normal practice for kids aged maybe 6 to 10 years old. And the entire practice was focused on just speed climbing. Like, that's all they did the entire day. They had this coach that was yelling at them in Russian, like, okay, ready, set, go. And they had groups of 3 race up the wall. They do speed traverses. They get on the standardized wall, get like halfway up and fall, but that's okay because they're just learning. But from starting them getting interested and engaged in practicing speed climbing from such a young age, I think it really helps with the development of their national program in order to get some of the top athletes consistently year after year after year to be some of the best in the world at speed climbing. So that was kind of the first like deep dive I think I did into understanding maybe why one country can be so good at a specific discipline. So actually the week after we were in Moscow, I got to travel to Japan to compete at 2 speed climbing competitions, coincidentally. Japan is, if you haven't been following the circuit, is really, really well known for their bouldering results, and now, of course, getting really, really strong in their lead results as well. I think this one's a little bit more complex. Like, how does a country become really good at lead or bouldering? Maybe a little bit less straightforward than speed. I think it comes down to a variety of reasons. I think maybe the bigger ones that are surface level are like culture and support from their federation is pretty high. In Japan, it's very common to have one thing that you focus on very, very highly for extracurricular activity or career, and really try and become not just the best that you can be, but some of the best athletes in the world in a variety of areas. And yeah, the culture is very open to that kind of mentality of trying to work really hard to better yourself in a specific field. I think another aspect of it comes from, historically, the first really, really strong Japanese athlete we had in the scene was Yuji Hirayama back many years ago before I even started climbing myself.
He's still looking in pretty good shape, actually.
Oh, yeah.
I saw him in Innsbruck.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Did you climb with him?
No.
Okay.
No, I had a beer with him.
Awesome. Yeah, Yuji Hirayama, if you weren't aware, is one of the most dominant athletes in the sport when he was climbing maybe 20 plus years ago. Yeah, a really strong athlete, very nice, and he actually came out and was able to prove that Japan and countries from Asia, not necessarily from Europe, which were the most dominant in lead climbing at the time, can actually come out and perform and do well at World Cups, which he did. So he actually was a big leader in bringing climbing to Japan. He has his own climbing gyms there. He organizes his own competitions. And from that, we now have not just his gyms in Tokyo, but like somewhere in the range of 200 plus gyms in Tokyo. So the barrier to entry to get into climbing is so low. And even though most of the gyms are very small, we were able to see so many more climbers get into climbing from such a young age. So I think having a low barrier to entry is really important. So all these things kind of combine together: culture, having Yuji Hirayama be such a big leader, and having a low barrier to entry have really provided a diving board, per se, into getting a lot of really good athletes started in climbing. And now they have their national competitions broadcast on live TV in Japan. So culturally, it's like very much not only an okay thing to do, but like a respected and revered thing to be a professional climber in Japan. So it's big.
Do you know what's interesting, though, just talking about that, is you can read training manuals and you can try and figure out how pros train. Nothing you've said there is actually really related to the science of training. It's not about whether you did 2 power sessions a week and 1 endurance, or the other way around, or you use a fingerboard, or you do this or you do that. It's a culture thing.
Yeah, I think
it's
so.
It's a more subtle thing than purely physical.
Absolutely, and I think that's why, I mean, we have individual athletes that do really well from many countries, but to have a really strong team requires a really big culture around, whatever activity you're doing. And we're talking about climbing here and seeing the dominance of the Japanese team and how good they've become. I think all those factors kind of combine into how good they've become recently. So I haven't mentioned at all Slovenian team, and that's kind of the interesting thing. This is my first time here, and I actually have no idea why the Slovenian team is so good. But they have been really dominant, especially in women's lead climbing over the past many years, and continue to do so. And now we're seeing a lot of emergence from bouldering as well on the men's side. And it's really impressive to me. So I'm continuing to learn and see these athletes do really well. So excited just to be here.
Well, they say the true definition of intelligence is realizing how little you know. So I appreciate your honesty when you say, I don't know.
Thanks. Well, now we have Will Bosey on the wall. He's looking really strong, just campusing through this section here.
Yeah, Will Bosey looking super strong in pretty much all 3 disciplines. A pretty good shout, you would imagine, for the Olympics.
Absolutely. Let's see if he can slow it down on this move here and be really in control. Get his left foot up.
It's one thing to get the right hand up.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's another to keep it there as the feet come off. He still hasn't found a way to get the feet on. Will needs to find some way of getting the weight off his right hand, and he's done that. How much energy does it cost him? It's one of those moves where when you're watching it, you can picture what it feels like, the force going through the shoulder.
Yeah, he was, you can tell how strong he is just because he was able to hold that for so long. But, oh man, that was really impressive effort from Will there.
And Sophie Coller's underway, Team Switzerland on the women's route. You can see her there, bottom right of your screen, and just occasionally on the left of the screen as well.
So right now, Will's actually picked up the pace quite a bit, climbed this section, probably the fastest we've seen any competitors. I think he's realized that he's through the bouldery move and is into kind of more resistance style for this roof section. So let's hope he is able to keep calm, figure out these sections, and then, of course, slow it down just a little bit for this technical section coming up right here.
Now then, how much energy did he lose rotating under that right arm? How much has he got left for this tricky crimp section? Very different type of moves.
Interesting, he pinched the outside of that right hand. Ooh, Wow, that was really impressive from Will. Not many climbers can hold that or do that big of a splits.
And he just, perhaps indecision, perhaps a bit of fatigue from Will Bosley. How did you read that one?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of factors from holding the bottom swing move for quite a bit more time than I think he would have liked, and also having his feet a little bit too far to the left. For that move there, the hold is kind of facing in an upward to the left diagonal way, and you need to oppose that by having your feet counter to where you're trying to pull with your hands. And so I think by having his foot down to the left, it kind of caused this kind of rotational force that he might not necessarily would have wanted for that move specifically. But I mean, we just got to see quite a demonstration of both how strong Will is and how flexible he is as well.
And Sophie Collar got that quick draw loop across her chest again. These clips are causing almost as many problems as the moves.
Yeah. I think it's actually kind of interesting to see how much of a predictor both the clipping in the roof for the women and this bouldery, shouldery move for the men is going to be for the rest of their climb. I think as an athlete, having a smooth bottom section and being confident in control definitely contributes to being able to commit high for the upper section as well. And I think if you have one or two mistakes as an athlete, I mean, that's the hardest part of being an athlete. You have to be able to recover from them and come back stronger while you're on the wall. So I think the people who are going to make finals tonight are going to have one of those two aspects. Oh, no.
Oh, and that is a heartbreaker for Sebastian Hallenke. He didn't come to Innsbruck because he didn't feel he was quite ready for it and quite in shape. He did a couple of World Cups earlier this season to see if he still had the passion for competing, to see if he still enjoyed it. He felt he did, and he's come here to Kranj, the scene of his so far one and only World Cup win. And that is a heartbreaker for him. A lot of people enjoyed having him back in the World Cups, including myself. He's such a big character, he's so fun to watch, and that is a shame.
Bummer, yeah. No, I got to compete in the Youth World Championship Series with him back several years ago, and he's always just such a awesome, so positive guy, and it's definitely a bummer to see him go out so early, but I'm sure he'll be back with a smile and a laugh, and definitely excited to see him come back stronger.
So Jasa Kala now is climbing on the women's route. What a shame for Basti Hallenke. Say, kind of refound his passion for competition climbing earlier this year. But it's a shame. I don't think he's coming to China. I haven't asked him actually. Sadly, I think that might be it for him for this season.
Yeah, well, they do have a National Cup in Germany for combined, I believe, coming up pretty soon. So his competition World Cup season may or may not be over, but he definitely has at least one national competition coming up.
Sean McCall will be climbing next on the men's route. There seems to be a slight delay as we wait for him. Just looking across the stage, doesn't seem to be any judges running around with their heads in their hands, which is always a good sign. So I assume there's no sort of technical problem. And Sean McCall has just made his way out. Remember, all these climbers have had an observation. They had a 6-minute observation at about 7:45 local time, just before we came on air. We're getting to the stage now where remembering it could have been quite tricky. Observed about an hour and a half ago, just under.
Yeah, route reading is definitely a learned skill, I would say, in competition climbing, especially being able to look at a route for 6 minutes, go back into isolation, and remember as many of the moves, if not all of the moves that you can. It's something that competitors practice on their off seasons in the climbing gym as much as they can. Some athletes even draw out the route when they're back in isolation, just so that they can think about it as much as they can. But yeah, from my experience, it's something that it's not just, oh, one athlete's good at this or not. You can actually practice this, and if you're in the climbing gym, what I'd recommend is go up to a climb or start with a boulder problem, I would say, and try and see if you can remember all the moves by turning around after you climbed it 1 or 2 times and then explaining the route to your partner as descriptively as possible. So saying, you know, I went from my left hand up to this pinch, right hand to the crimp, left hand to the finish jug. And I think that's in a way to practice route reading and remembering sequences of moves really effectively. So these athletes not only practice really hard with training, but also with their route reading, and we're seeing that with how quickly and efficiently they're able to move up the wall here in Kranj.
Here's Chiasa Callan. Just to let you know, Sean McCall off shot, that hard move up with the right hand, he rotated all the way round to the point where his right foot touched the wall behind him and he stayed on. Can't think it must have cost him a bit of energy, but he's still going strong.
He's climbing really fast too.
Chiasa getting plenty of encouragement for the local crowd, as one might expect. There's Sean McCall in the background.
Joshua just approaching some of the harder moves up here. We've seen a lot of competitors, as soon as they grab the next right hand on the volume, they tend to miss the best part on the next cheese block. But if she can find the good spot in her first try, I think it'll be really good for her for the rest of the climb.
Yeah, the feet pop off, but she looks so calm. We can see her face just beginning to grimace now. And she's just going to work her way up into the compression moves on those star volumes above. And almost from nowhere, we lose Chiasa.
But Sean is climbing really well here.
Yeah, Sean looking pretty handy on the men's route. Didn't get off to a great start, but he's recovered extremely well.
Yeah, he's put in a lot of training in the off-season to get where he is today. Good effort from Sean.
Yeah, just popped up with the left. I think that'll be a 33 plus from what we've seen so far. Somewhere in that range, sorry, 35 plus. Which would put him about second in the overall standings. So he'll have a bit of a nervous wait, Sean, but that could well be enough. Be touch and go, we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's right around where the finals cutoff will be.
Katarina Posch is climbing on the women's route. Yuki Hado will be next out on the men's. Only 9:10. They've climbed very quickly these semi-final routes, and the same is true in the qualifiers as well. The qualifiers taken less time than was imagined, and so far the semi-finals have been the same.
Yeah, with these walls being so short and the moves being so bouldery, it requires a little bit greater speed and definitely time for these athletes. I think the average time on the wall is less than 3 minutes or so. Yeah, Katarina Posch climbing well here in Kranj. She's a very seasoned competitor. We're actually the same age. We competed in the same categories when we were competing in the Youth World Championship Series. Very accomplished competitor. She's won World Championships. Has she won a World Cup before? I believe so.
No, I don't think so.
But in any case.
Now scrabbling to find the document with my...
Back again. But yeah, really experienced climber. She's really getting into a lot more of her studies now. She's studying law, and I was talking to her actually on the way drive. We were driving down from Innsbruck. She's doing kind of a online program where she's able to take her studies and spend a little more time training, but also being able to complete more work towards getting her bachelor's and hopefully her master's in law by the time she's finished with her at least competitive climbing career.
Just to confirm, no, she isn't a World Cup winner, a Youth World Champion.
That's what it was.
Yes, I knew there was a big win somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So, Posch. Really, it seems that efficiency is the key through this section, not only with the moves, but also with the clips. That's said to be the best position to clip from, hard as it might be to believe.
You can just see the experience she has here, being so calm in this roof section, really relaxed.
Yuki had her safely through the slightly dangerous big move up to the right hand where the feet cut loose. Katja Posch now got this big move up to the yellow volume. Doing well to rest there. It's a pretty poor hold she's resting on. A lot of trust in the feet.
Let's see if she can get the feet right for this crossing move. Oh, she almost put her right foot up. She kept it low. There we go. Good roll out.
Yeah, nicely done. Climbing towards our camera now and towards that cheese block hold. Look very composed up until this stage.
Opting for a longer move with her height there. Oh, perfect. She went directly to the good spot in that hold. Really good commitment from her so far. Wow.
She's looking super strong through these star volumes. You just see her beginning to breathe pretty hard now. Could really have got 2 clips done at the same time there, but it just looked too uncomfortable a position to hold, but that is still an excellent effort.
Yeah,
Katja Posch could have done enough there.
That looked really good from her. Provisional lead as of now.
It all gets a bit complicated in amongst those star volumes, but I think that was enough for the provisional lead.
Yeah.
We'll see how the judges saw it. Of course, we haven't actually been given a route map, I should confess. We often are, we haven't been this time. So we're on-sighting it, basically. It is enough, yeah, 32 for Katja Posch. So that's, you would imagine that could be enough. Yuki had her just heading towards the high point on the men's route, but not quite finding it. Probably not enough for him, you would imagine.
Yeah, we have 10 climbers left in the men. 10 or 10. So you have to imagine that, yeah, that will, depending on how the last couple climbers will do, I think that'll be right near the cut. We'll see.
Here's Molly Thompson-Smith, of course, coming back from that pretty devastating finger injury. If you've seen the picture of it on social media, it's pretty gruesome.
I recommend you don't.
No.
But no, Molly has really had to overcome tremendous obstacles off the wall this year. She had a pretty nasty finger injury that kept her away from most of the Lead World Cup season. The photo that is in question is actually of her, I think during her surgery for the finger. You saw this one? Yeah, and it's not for the faint of heart, but I mean, that just goes to show you how strong she's been mentally, emotionally, coming back and battling through this recovery process, coming back even stronger than ever and climbing well at the World Championships, making the semifinals, and of course back here in Kranj where she won her first World Cup medal here last year, I believe.
Was, yeah. And just been slightly indecisive, that's how you do it. And when she had the injury, obviously, I guess for a start, you don't know how the injury will heal. You don't know how your body will respond to a long break from climbing, followed by getting back to a professional athlete's training load. There's so many unknowns in the recovery process that there was no guarantee we'd see her again this year. That was Sascha Lehmann, a man who on the form he's been in 2018 you would probably have backed for a place in the final, and he's fallen very low on the men's route, nowhere near a final sadly for Sascha. But yeah, Molly, absolutely no guarantee she would have been back at this level, well, ever, if we're being honest, but certainly not this season. And a fantastic story when you see someone who's had such a devastating injury to be getting back to her best.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a really good fight for Molly so far. Yeah, and unfortunately for Sascha Lehmann, he came off right in the same place that Sebastian Holenk did. It was a sloper section where you need to keep tension in your feet, and I didn't see exactly what happened with his feet, but if you slip off and you're just trying to hold the slopers with your hands, it's really, really difficult to hold, if not almost impossible, just because of how angled these slopers are. Now, overhanging the wall is at that point.
Max Rudiger now heading out onto the men's route. Looks super strong in the qualifiers. Might have had a top were it not for a few issues with the last quick draw on route number 2.
And Molly, oh no! Goodness. I was looking really good up until that point, but yeah, it's just a really tricky roll-up move. You have to go, and I think having the core tension to be able to swing through there is pretty necessary. But great climbing from her, not just this competition, but this whole season. So really excited to see her back on the wall and climbing here in the semifinals. So yeah, now we have Max, and as we were saying earlier, Max pulled off a really incredible move earlier today where he climbed very, very far past quite long quick draw and was able to recover by resting for quite a bit of time and being able to reach all the way back down and grab the quick draw. With current IFSC rules, it's about not being able to clip from a position, and Max was certainly able to find a way to clip. So it was probably one of the more impressive clips I've seen so far this year. And let's see if he can keep it going here in the semifinals. Nice, Max. Oh no.
Oh, again, it's a heartbreaker for Max. I've seen a few climbers have that problem. He's got the potential to surprise this men's route. This is Catherine Chung of Switzerland.
Catherine Chung has been climbing a lot of outdoor recently. She was able to make a couple of very difficult ascents in Flananger recently, I believe. Really strong competitor both on the rock and, of course, in the competitions as well. Just through this section here, we've seen a lot of women take their time, I think, and it really depends on your style. I think it's not necessarily really difficult moves, maybe a little bit more of a commitment issue, especially right here. But Catherine looking very calm and composed so far in the semifinals.
Romain de Grange has just got underway. Kranj, a place he will never forget. This is where he took his overall crown last year. Didn't actually have his best day at all, but did enough. I think it needed only, I think it was a 15th place finish, something like that. It was actually the only World Cup I've missed in 3 years. So I was watching it at home with everyone else.
Oh, you were busy.
I was busy. I think he, exactly.
In case you're wondering, Charlie just had his first child, so congratulations to Charlie.
Don't get me wrong, the World Cups matter to me, but there are one or two things that matter a bit more. So yeah, I had to give Kranj a miss. But it was a pleasure to watch Romain de Grange all the last season just storm through, having the best season of his life.
Yeah, he's such a legendary competitor, been in the circuit for so many years, and his experience just shows in every climb he's on.
Can't help but thinking that he might enjoy the upper section of this route, kind of bearing down on those small holds.
Yes, I believe so. I think if he can figure out this move right here that he's on right now, really controlled, and get that left foot in a good, no! Oh no.
We were having exactly the same thought process. If he can find his way through that move, he will enjoy what's coming, and he no doubt had realised that as well. Small, fingery crimps, one after the other. A lot of resistance climbing. It would have suited Romain de Grange down to the ground, but you've got to get there. That's the problem.
Yep, and this is actually a move that we just were mentioning earlier. We've seen more and more bouldery moves incorporated in some of the lead climbing World Cups here, and this was certainly one of them. Romain de Grange, certainly known for his lead climbing, but bouldering, I don't know if he's participated in any bouldering World Cups, at least recently. But yeah, that kind of move right there certainly favors athletes who have been competing a lot more in bouldering competitions as opposed to raw lead competitions.
She is just emerging out of the darkness from underneath the overhang. Did that cross-through move really nicely, looked in control throughout and just rotated around the hand. It's all getting pretty tight on both sides right now. Katja Posch, the current high point, 32 on the women's side, 36 plus for Sean McCall, leading the way on the men's. And that is going to be enough for Sean McCall and Francesco Vetterata. Only 6 climbers to go, and they are the current top 2. As you watch Catherine Chung, here's the cheese block. Should be no problems at all for a Swiss climber.
Yeah, she's looking really calm right now.
So that was a dad joke. And now she'll launch towards the star volumes. Getting plenty of cheers from down the front. I think she could be climbing herself into the final here. This is really impressive from Catherine Chung. She's able to look at her watch and pause. If she can get off these volumes, the star volume, she should be the first climber to do so. Somehow found the sweet spot of that hole, pretty much blind from that position. This is a high point that's being pushed further and further out with every move, and as she pushed out to the right, we lose her exiting the star volumes. But with 8 climbers to go and a high point set, you'd imagine that's enough for Catherine Chung. This was Romain Desgrange. You said it, Josh, and we were both thinking it. The problem will be if he could find a way through that move. And he landed, and it looked like he wanted to run straight out the door, which is right next to the venue. He was not a happy boy.
No. And unfortunately, his right foot slipped off the volume before he can get his left foot over to counter the rotation. So hopefully we'll see just exactly where you need your right foot to be with this is Hidemasa Nishida climbing, I believe.
Yes, Hidemasa just got underway. Oh, and we lose him as well. He was just lining up for the move. I think he was thinking about going with the left hand.
Yeah, that is unfortunately not the way you want to do that move. It's definitely a left hand down, right hand up, and kind of hold the swing. But as we've seen, it's really, really important that you get your left foot out to counter that rotation, unless you're Sean McCall.
Unless you're Sean McCall, in which case you can dab your right foot behind you and just push yourself back onto the wall.
Yeah, it's okay. He's been practicing Ninja Warrior.
Natsumi Hirano, the 16-year-old Japanese sensation. If you heard only the second half of that sentence, it could have been several names at the start of it. But it is Natsumi. Well, this men's route throwing up all sorts of surprises. You just saw Romain Desgrange having a bit of a tantrum, and he's not been the only one. Not sure the B-layer would have really appreciated him yarding a load of slack through like that. So, yeah, not a happy man, Romain Desgrange. He was a very happy man here in Kranj last year, but not this time.
And Natsumi Hirano, she really strong up-and-coming climber from Japan. She, I believe, did really well last weekend at the Adidas Rockstars competition, and was the winner of the Adidas Rockstars competition in Tokyo earlier this year. So strong boulder, strong up-and-coming climber. I'm not sure if she's competed in many other World Cups in lead so far, but I mean, this is the first time I'm seeing.
Yeah, she competed in a couple, made the semi-final in Briançon earlier this year.
Awesome, yeah. But yeah, doing really well.
Stefano Ghisolfi's got underway. He, of course, was the man who was hunting Roman down here in Kranj, looking for the overall title last year. Couldn't quite find a way. It's maybe a bit early to be talking too much about the overall standings, but after this we do only have 2 lead World Cups left. Can anyone catch Jakob Schubert? First things first. Here's Natsumi. Mina Markovic, Vita Lucan, Mia Krampel, Jessie Pilz, Hannah Schubert, Yanya Garmer and Jane Kim still to come on the women's side, and only 4 climbers on the men's. Toma Yuan, Jakob Schubert, Jakub Konechny and Domen Skofitz.
Natsumi Hirano has been making these clips very efficiently. Moving into the crux section of this head wall here. Let's see if she's able to really dial it in. Oh wow, really good rollout through her.
Here she is again, climbing towards our camera. Could do with hitting the sweet spot of this cheese hold rather than the left-hand side then bumping up. What did she go for? The left-hand side looks more appealing, but she's read it perfectly. When you first look at that hold, it definitely looks like you want to get it on the left. And we saw a lot of climbers trying to do it that way.
Yeah, that was a veteran move right there from a very young climber.
Natsumi Hirano going really well here. Didn't really need that fumbled clip, but she's on her way again. Stefano Ghisolfi's going well on the men's route as well. All action here in Kranj. Stefano Ghisolfi, Natsumi Hirano, both high on the wall. And both, well, certainly in the case of Natsumi, climbing themselves into the final. Stefano looking very composed once again, climbing towards our camera. Goes up with the left hand and just peels off. But that should be enough for Stefano.
I think so, yeah. Great climbing from Stefano. He matched Francesco Federato's high point, and we'll be seeing both of them in the finals tomorrow.
I think we will, yeah. We're having scores slightly slow to come through for reasons above my head. But yeah, Natsumi Hirano, that was actually a new high point, 34 plus. As I say, we don't have a route map and it all gets slightly complicated around the star volume, but if you can get close to getting off those star volumes, you're guaranteed a place in the final. And anything less than that, it gets slightly tighter.
And that is exactly what Natsumi Hirano has just done. Since there's only 7 climbers left, she is guaranteed a spot in the final tomorrow.
She certainly is. Here is the 7th to last climber, Mina Markovic, looking for a 5th win in Kranj. First competed here in 2002, and she is still at it and still going very, very well. Very disappointed with how things went in Innsbruck. We missed her at the business end of the competition, but 5 wins in your home World Cup would be an incredible achievement.
Yeah, that's really incredible. And it's cool here actually seeing the contrast between new climbing style with Natsumi Hirano, or excuse me, Natsumi Hirano. She's brand new to the scene relatively, very young competitor. And of course now we have Mina Markovic, who's extremely experienced competitor, many years of success under her belt, climbing at her home World Cup, big crowd. Let's see how well she can make on with the semi-final route.
Quite interesting with Mina as well. As we watch Toma Yuan also falling on that big move with the right hand. Another of the big names falls. Oh, Toma Yuan adds his name to the long list of those left heartbroken by this men's route in Kranj semi-final.
And it's really coming down to, on that move, can you get your left foot either far over or far up enough to stop that rotation? And unfortunately that wasn't the case for Toma right there.
Here's how it went.
He get his left foot just a little bit higher, and nope. Not quite enough.
I think he realised he wasn't going to hold it. So 2 French climbers in a row dropping that move. Here's Mina. I was about to say she had an attempt at retiring a few years ago and then just thought, oh no, that's a terrible idea, and just came back. And I think most people that watch the IFSC think she made the right decision by coming back. It's not that she ever really went away. She kind of said she was retiring, said she's not.
Yeah.
And, luckily, we were able to watch her for a few more years.
Awesome. And I'm sure as an experienced competitor, she's a huge inspiration to some of the younger Slovenian women climbers here. Their team is just so strong. They have so many athletes pushing the limit, and she's leading the way for them for a number of years here.
Jakob Schubert's just got underway on the men's route, leading the overall standings this year. 2 World Cup wins, a World Championship and a combined World Championship so far in 2018. And that's all since the start of July. So it's not been a bad 3 months for Jakob Schubert. Summer 2018, a pretty big success by any measure. And the cheers that you can hear are because of this. It's Mina Markovic possibly powering her way into the final. You've got to be in it to win it, and she hasn't guaranteed herself a place in the final yet. Could do with getting well established in amongst these star volumes and ideally exiting them as well. We lose Mina just as she matched. Left hand landed first, right hand went to join it, and there wasn't quite space. Here's Jakob. It would be a big surprise if we lost him.
Good foot placement with the left foot. You see really minimal rotation there, just because he was able to put his left foot before he made the move as far over as he could.
You have to say it would have been a massive surprise the way he's been going in 2018.
Yeah, but also I think it's because he's been really getting into bouldering competitions of late. I think this move is a very bouldery move, and having that body awareness of how your body's going to swing through this section is a very much bouldering experiential sort of move. And because Jakob has had a lot more experience doing bouldering competitions, having this experience and knowledge of this style of movement, he's able to exactly know where he needs to put that foot to counteract that swing.
Yeah, he's had a couple of 4th places in the bouldering already this year, back in China and Meiringen, if memory serves me right, and a 2-time Boulder World Cup winner as well, so he really does know how to do these bouldery moves. He's not a lead climber who's learned it. Fascinating. I did an interview with Jakob earlier on today. We'll put it on the IFSC Facebook page tomorrow. And I said, is this the best you've ever climbed? And he, well, maybe, yeah. And he said, you can always be better. I'm still figuring out why. He said, I seem to get pumped quite quickly sometimes on comp routes. Maybe I can improve my warm-up. And I was, as an athlete, you always know you can get better. But I was amazed at how he wasn't quite down on himself, but he was kind of saying, oh, there's loads I could do better.
Sure. And
you watch him in 2018, he's just crushing it and so vastly experienced, but really interesting to hear him say, no, I can be much better than this.
And as athletes, I think we're all learning so much more about just how much more into our sport we can really delve with our sport now not only being more in the mainstream, but having Olympic interest in everything. I think we're just now learning as athletes how much more we can really do to optimize performance as high-level athletes, as far as warm-up, nutrition, sleep, recovery, everything. So I think what Jakob's really getting at here is that even though he's such a dominant and really accomplished athlete, we can always kind of learn more about how to become a better one.
And pretty sure he's climbing himself into the final here, Jakob. That's him in, and it's him in 1st place, I think. Either way, he's into the final.
Yeah, I believe he's tied or somewhere around the high point that Sean McCall or Stefano Ghisolfi had. We'll have to see exactly what score they give him, but he's for sure made his way into the final.
Yeah, this is Vita Lukin, youth world champion from Moscow 6 weeks ago.
And in the top 7 climbers, 4 of them are from Slovenia, so really good representation, as you were speaking of earlier. Vida Lukin, one of the younger competitors, as opposed to Mina Markovic being very, very experienced. She's definitely an up-and-coming star from Slovenia, and we were just talking about how strong this Slovenian women's team is. They've been coming out doing some very impressive results throughout the season. In Briançon, there was, I believe, at least 3, maybe 4 women in the final from Slovenia.
Yeah, it was 4, and we just see she suddenly looked a bit panicked on that left hand.
Yeah, I think this goes back to the angle change there. You have to transfer from doing this kind of very energy-conserving roof climbing to immediately going to very technical kind of cross-through moves in this less overhang section. On the wall right now we have Jakob. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name. Very, very strong climber, very young. From the Czech Republic, we've seen quite a few very talented athletes come through over the years. But of course, the most recognizable name you have out there is immediately Adam Ondra. But I think it's really important to notice that Jakob's not just, Adam Ondra's not the only strong athlete from the Czech Republic. Jakob's very, very strong climber. He was in the finals in Innsbruck earlier this year in the lead.
Yeah, he was in the World Championship just 2 weeks ago. 6th place there. He's not going to repeat that here in Kranj, and he is another climber falling on that move, and that's a pretty familiar expression on the face of climbers who've not figured that move out. Jakob Schubert got it absolutely spot on, as you said, just dab the left foot in preparation for the swing. If you don't see it coming, you're unlikely to be able to rescue it.
Yep.
And that's such a disappointment for Jakob Connection. He's 6th place in the World Championships, came through from the qualifiers in 2nd place, and he's not going to make the final.
Yeah, it's only 1 of 2 athletes to get a top on the first qualification route, but unfortunately that will not see him through to the final tomorrow.
Unless things go disastrously wrong for Mia Krampel, it's going to be all Slovenia on the wall in the second when she's joined by Domen Skofitz, who's the last male climber out. Now Domen, regardless of how much he's been able to see, will know there's a hard move somewhere low down on the route because he's come out much faster than he would have expected.
Absolutely. And I would imagine the men during the route preview were able to kind of chat amongst themselves to figure out that, yes, this is a very difficult move, maybe 4 or 5 clips up. And I'm sure they've been talking about it in isolation and trying to figure out what the best way of approaching it's going to be. My guess is that not many of them in isolation thought about specifically putting their left foot out, because I think we've seen so many different variations on how people are approaching that move as far as the left foot. And from what we're seeing so far, my guess is that it is a purely experiential move that you have to kind of know instinctually to be able to put your left foot out to counteract that swing. So hopefully Domen will be able to figure that out. As a very, very accomplished and proficient competitive climber, I would hope so, but you know, anything can happen, as we've seen.
So Mia Krampel and Domen Skofitz currently on the wall. Domen, the last climber out on the men's side. It's gone very, very quickly. It must be some sort of a record, this, for a men's semi-final. We're going to be done and dusted in 1 hour and 45. Mia Krampel heading towards this very steepest section of the wall and looking pretty composed so far. As you said, Josh, she was one of 4 climbers on the women's side in the World Cup final in Briançon earlier on this year.
And we just saw Domen cruise through that crux section in the middle there. He, instead of putting his foot out like Jakob and a couple other people did, he had enough flexibility and wherewithal to put his foot up on the volume that his left hand was on. So really great move from Domen there. That's going to save him a lot of energy for up top.
Just looks slightly committed, perhaps slightly overcommitted on that move out to the right with the left hand. Just dropped onto it, Domen. Keep an eye on him, bottom right of the screen. For now, though, we'll focus on Mia Krampel.
And you can really hear the crowd getting behind these athletes here, both for home country. You can tell the crowd really wants to see them in the final tomorrow night.
Here's Mia cutting loose, needs to get the feet back on with a bit of urgency and does so. Now heading up in towards the star volume, there it is. Now she needs to get established on there and ideally get off it. And that is going to be very, very tight for Mia Krampel. I think, I make no predictions, I think that's going to be very tight, probably not enough for her. This is Domen, still quite a few moves away from the high point. He is the last climber out, of course, so I can afford to make a mistake a bit higher than that, but probably not that low down. As it stands, Will Bosey's in 8th place. And as I say, we don't have a route map. I'm trying to picture exactly which move it was. Will Bosey fell on Domen, thanks to the crowd. And I don't think he's done enough at first glance. So Jessie Pilz makes her way out now, the world champion, crowned in Innsbruck 3 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago the championship finished. Final. Yeah, 3 weeks ago we had the lead. And Domen, no, 12th place for him. And Will Bosey ends up in 9th after the scores update. So as we watch Jessie Pilz get underway, Jakob Schubert, Stefano Gisolfi, Sean McCall, what a top 3 that is, Francesco Vetterata, Masahiro Higuchi, Yuki Hada, Kokoro Fuji and Marcello Bombardi. Your top 8. I think my scores just coming along the top of the screen.
So we have 3 Italians again, and 3 Italians. 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
That's 3. Yes, you're right. Sorry, yeah, you're the computer scientist. Yeah, Marcello Bombardi, Francesco Vetterata, and Stefano Gisolfi all safely through. All 3 of the Italian men that made it into the semi-final will make it into the final.
And 3 Japanese as well as Sean McCall and of course Jakob Schubert, our current world champion. Let's see if Jessie can match Jakob's performance as well. Make her way into the final herself.
Looking at it, I think this is a route Jessie might enjoy. You don't want to curse it, of course, but you need a lot of resistance, you need a lot of endurance, and given how well she's been going in 2018, I feel this might suit her.
Yeah, and Jessie's not just proven herself as a really accomplished lead climber winning the World Championship, she's also a really good boulder. She was in the World Championships finals earlier this year, and just really kind of making her way towards the Olympic qualification as one of the top contenders, I think, for Austria. In the combined World Championship finals, she won the bronze medal after an incredible speed climbing performance. She was able to get her personal best of 10.3 seconds, I believe. But yeah, that's something that she's really working on as well to make sure that she's really ready for qualification next year for the Tokyo Olympic Games.
The world champion chalks up and now is arriving at the very key section of this route. As it stands, not in the finals, and you need to get a few moves further on than this. But she looks like she's got some energy left. She's climbing accurately, she's climbing precisely.
She hit that cheese block hold on the correct side.
Yeah, read it perfectly. Got the distraction of that little yellow screw on that can be used as a foothold just next to it as well. Jessie looking so calm up until here, able to clip from pretty awkward position. It's very, very steep, the wall there. Will she be the first climber to make a dent on the head wall above. And that's a new high point.
And she absolutely nailed that screw on that flat hold there.
You can see how much endurance she's got these days. She's really able to readjust in pretty awkward positions. So Jessie Pilt's climbing her way into the final. 4th to last climber in the semi-final, so can't guarantee herself top spot going into the final. But she will be there tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Kranj time. Can we see her first top?
Alright, and this move here, the outsiders are telling us is a little bit tricky. You have to get just perfect on these blue holds. Oh.
And that's a new high point from Jessie Pilt's. Very strong performance from the reigning world champion, as it was from Jakob Schubert over on the men's side. She's safely through. You can see one of the limitations of the Kranj venue is actually the tops are kind of in the rafters, so apologies when we get climbers near the top, they start being obscured by steel beams and things. There is a camera right up there, but how good the view is for that left-hand top, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, so you can't see right here is actually the move that Jessie was going for. There's 3 holds spaced right in a row, and the move itself is very tricky because you have to choose which of those you want to grab. From talking to the outsiders, they were telling us that you want to grab both of the end holds and kind of ignore the middle hold. It's more of a visual distraction for the athletes to kind of puzzle out. But yeah, it's really, really close that Jessie was almost able to grab that. And we'll kind of see how close these other athletes are able to get to getting to that top of the semifinal route.
Here is Hannah Schubert. Jessie Pilt's, of course, the reigning world champion, but Hannah Schubert was the highest ranked Austrian in the women's qualifiers. Qualified 3rd. Jessie Pilt, who we've just seen qualifying in 4th. So Jessie's going to be in the final tomorrow night. Can Hannah Schubert join her? Her brother's going to be on the men's side.
And Hannah's been climbing very, very well of late. She made the finals at the World Championships in Innsbruck, her hometown, and climbed extraordinarily well today. Very, very close to a top on one of her qualification routes.
And you've been climbing at the Klettercenter in Innsbruck. She's a regular there, of course. Seen much of her in training?
A little bit. I think we have different training schedules as far as time of day goes. I'm more of an afternoon, nighttime climber. I think she's much more a morning person, but that's just personal preference.
Yeah, I think had a really good winter. Hannah Schubert really had a really solid block of training. It's really paid off this year.
Awesome.
We were there last week, but you really can't overstate what a good facility that is.
Yeah, it's truly incredible, the fact that especially the Austrian team not only has people that grew up there, but now they have most of their team based out of there and are training full-time at the Kletterzentrum in Innsbruck. Easily one of the best climbing training facilities in the world. They have basically everything that you need to get really strong, as we've seen with a number of Austrian climbers so far in the semifinal and, of course, over the course of their season. So Hannah looking pretty calm and composed here. She's just approaching this roof section. See if she can figure out how to get these clips efficiently. It's been kind of a turning point for a lot of the competitors in this route here.
2 climbers still to come after Hannah, Janja Garnbrett and Jane Kim. But yeah, Hannah looks super solid, as you say. Final in the World Championships in Innsbruck. I feel like she's got a really big result on her in 2018, Hannah. I mean, obviously a final in your home World Championships is a big result, but I feel like there could be a podium for her before the year's out. She's certainly climbing well enough. She just needs to put a World Cup together. It's true. Everything goes perfectly.
And interesting enough, this World Cup here in Kranj is usually the final stop on the World Cup Tour, but this year, because of World Championships and also Youth Olympic Games, it's the 3rd to last stop. So after here, a lot of these athletes will be actually traveling to China to compete in the final 2 lead and speed World Cups of the season. So Hannah made quick work of the lower roof section with those clips. So hopefully that gives her a little bit more endurance and stamina to be able to get to this upper head wall. Good clip there. You can see a lot of the climbers doing kind of mini shakes before they grab each of those holds, and that's definitely a really good piece of technique that'll help you just get 1 or 2 more moves at the end. See Hannah really making efficient moves, utilizing those mini shakes as much as she can. She's reading this section correctly so far, getting both of those Gastons. It's just a matter of getting just the right spot there, which she has. And this, I believe, will put her through to the final.
Yes, it will. Hannah Schubert safely through. How high can she push her high point? Again, she's like Jessie, accurate with the right hand. Just had to recorrect. She was close enough to find the sweet spot of that hold. You can see the cameraman hidden up there in the rafters. He's got the best view in the house. One more quick draw to clip before the top. We see Hannah go up with the right hand. Can't quite find a way, but she has definitely found a way into the final. Hannah Schubert safely through to continue her excellent 2018.
Yeah, that was really great climbing from Hannah. You can see just how small these holds are up top. Got a really good heel hook at the right foot, and she just wants to make sure she's getting the right body position before she goes to that hold, but unfortunately her foot slipped there.
This was Roman de Grange earlier on. Here comes Janje Garnbret, the unfamiliar position of not climbing, last in the semi-final. Again, had a good chat with Janje earlier on, and I said, is there more pressure when you climb here? And she said, oh yeah. No attempt to sugarcoat it. She is under more pressure when she climbs in Kranj.
Always a little more pressure when you're climbing in front of your hometown crowd.
Yeah, already won here back in 2016, so it's not a bogey event for her. Not that any of them are, but she deals pretty well with the pressure. You'd have to say it would be the shock to end all shocks if she wasn't to make it through. She never missed a senior IFSC final in the lead.
That's an impressive statistic. I don't know if you can truly appreciate how difficult it is not only to make a final at a lead World Cup, but to always make the final at a lead World Cup. There's so many different factors that come into play with luck and setting and time of day you climb. It's really, really difficult to kind of manage all of these and have good performances consistently throughout not just a season, but a whole career. And that is exactly what Janje Garnbret has been able to do so far.
Yeah, I just geek out on the stats, to be honest. Her worst finish in IFSC senior competitions in lead and boulder is 7th place. That was in Vale, and it remains the only final she's ever missed in senior IFSC competition. Till now, still has to earn it every single time. It's easy to almost take her for granted a bit, Janje Garnbret, but when you're standing at the bottom of the wall, your score's 0, same as everyone else. You've still got to earn it every single time.
Absolutely. Janje definitely one of the favorites for the combined Olympic format that we've been seeing more and more recently. She won the gold medal in the combined in Innsbruck a couple weeks ago. And not bad at her speed climbing game either.
No, she's getting there with the speed climbing. And we know all about her lead climbing. Only missed the podium once in her World Cup career.
But of course, climbing at a World Cup in front of your hometown crowd, no matter how many times you compete at World Cups around the world, it's always a different story when you come back to your hometown.
So Janja Garnbret, winner of 3 of the 4 World Cups we've had so far, concluded in 2018, and she was second in the other one. She was second in the World Championship. She won the combined World Championship. She won the Bouldering World Championship, and she's looking for a place in the final in her home World Cup. Still slightly struggling, I believe, with that shoulder injury. Just slightly slapping at that move with the left hand. Not like her not to look composed. Climbing into the star volumes, crowd enjoying this.
Taking these clips really efficiently here. Oh, I spoke too soon. She missed that clip, but she's able to find another body position to make sure that she's able to get it correctly.
Jessie Pilt's currently leading the way, 40 plus for her. Hannah Schubert, 38 plus for her. We do seem to rely on countback a lot, particularly in women's lead climbing. Janja's just found her way into the final, but if countback was to come in, a top would come in very handy here in the semi-final for Janja. Got a bit of a battle on her hands. It's really hard to see her either in the arena or on the cameras as she disappears up into the rafters and the feet cut loose. And she'll, I think, be slightly frustrated there, Janja. It's hard to ever find many faults or many weaknesses, but she didn't look that composed in that upper section. Slapped at a couple of moves, fiddled with the clip, and then kind of shook her head at the crowd as if to show her frustration. Didn't quite look the kind of calm, collected, dialed down Janja that just strolls to the top of route after route.
Sure. And I think especially with the semifinal round, for these top athletes, sometimes it can be the most nerve-wracking round because there's so much to lose by not making the final if you're hoping to be back on the podium. But in the semifinal round, anything can happen, as we've seen so many times, especially on the men's side of things. So I think for her, just getting those nerves out, having the hometown crowd be super loud, having the lights back on, and being completely different environment from the qualifiers we had earlier this morning. I think that's just her kind of working through those, and I'm sure tomorrow night she'll be more dialed in, back to where we've seen her before, and hopefully see her back on top of the wall here in Kranj.
So here is Jane Kim hunting a hat-trick of wins in Kranj, 2-time winner already. The day has not yet come where she forgets to take those slippers off. I'm worried it will one day. Starts the watch and gets underway. Janja Garnbret, by the way, second in the semi-final. Jessie Pilt's 40 plus to Janja's 40. And as I say, when we're talking about someone who, in their entire World Cup career, which is now into its 4th season, has only missed 1 podium, we are scraping the barrel looking for weaknesses. But Janja, I don't think look quite as composed and controlled as we have seen her.
Sure.
Tomorrow is a new day, though.
Absolutely. I think we'll see Janja back in top form tomorrow. Speaking of top form, here we have Jane Kim. Best result so far in the qualification round, so she's climbing last here in the semifinal. Absolutely phenomenal athlete. She was the gold medal winner of the World Championships in 2014 in Spain. That was a very memorable result for her. You could just see the emotion when she came off the wall at that competition. And of course, a couple weeks ago, she retained her podium streak at World Championships by placing 3rd in Innsbruck. And now she's back here in the lead competition, taking it to the next level, hoping to, as you said, Charlie, make it a hat trick of wins here in Kranj.
Yeah, she first came here back in 2005, so 13 years ago. 13 years after first climbing here, she's topping the qualifying round. She's in that Janja Garnbret category where, after so many years, you just have to say, just watch, just look at her. I mean, what a climber! You don't need to always give the stats to prove her brilliance. If you watch the IFSC for the past 15 years, you know what Jane Kim's all about. She doesn't seem to be dropping off at all, and looked incredible in the qualifiers. Top one of the routes. only person to top that route. It was route number 1, I think. She looks on brilliant form.
Absolutely, and so much experience behind her as well.
With 25 World Cup wins, it knows how to do it.
I think the most interesting thing, especially having Janja just climbed, is kind of contrasting the styles of both Yeon Kim and Janja. Even though they're both absolutely dominant competitors, I think they both have extraordinarily different climbing styles. Yeon Kim, as we're seeing here, is incredibly methodical, a little bit more slow-paced, but impeccable technique. Really, really smooth climbing, controls her pace, controls her breathing down to a science, and you can just tell how, I don't want to say robotic, but like really, really precise her climbing is, and to a point where she's a borderline perfection in climbing technique world.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's an insult to say robotic though, because in a sport where it's so hard to look controlled, to look robotic is mastery.
Sure. I mean, yeah, she just has really good control over her body and movement. Whereas we see Janja climb, and she's much more dynamic, much more explosive with her movement, able to take much bigger risks, but able to have much bigger payoffs if those risks work out.
Yeah, you sometimes watching Janja, it kind of looks like she, remembers she's left the oven on and she's got to get back up the wall and off again. But Jane Kim, just the pace is usually absolutely spot on, as you say, gets her breathing right. And really, if you wanted to show a video of someone of climbing technique, how to maximize your power and energy, then Jane Kim is it. And I think she's climbing herself almost certainly now into the final. She's in that region where the scoring will all get a bit complicated. But if she can launch out to the right and get hold of that big yellow volume, then she's certainly done enough. And there it is for Jane Kim. So she's through into the final. Sadly, it's Meiko Taki who misses out. She was in 8th place. She's going to get bumped down the order. No ties going into either of the finals, so we will have 8 men and 8 women through. Jane Kim is going to be amongst them. Now, she topped the qualifying round. Can she find a top on the semi-final? You'd never really know if she was beginning to struggle, but I think she is now. But lands that right hand without too much effort. And I think now she's heading out towards that series of blue pinches. She is, as I say, that sadly the bits of the roof getting in the way, but you can see enough to know that Jane Kim has found a top in the semi-final. So she was top in the qualifying round, she's top in the semi-final. What will the final bring? Join us tomorrow 6 p.m. Central European time to find out. Jane Kim, so far, seemingly dominating in Kranj. Right, let's have a look at the results. We'll have the men first. There we see it, top 8, Jakob Schubert, Stefano Ghisolfi, Sean McCall, 3 titans of the sport in the top 3, Francesco Vettoretto, and then the 3 Japanese climbers, Masahiro Higuchi, Yuki Hada, Kokoro Fuji, and Marcello Bombardi makes it 3 Italians as well. Will Bosi, who's on such a rich vein of form, both indoors and outdoors, narrowly misses out, ditto Kai Harada. The big surprise, you can see him there, 12th place, Domin Skofitz, hoping for a big result in his home World Cup and just couldn't find it. He hasn't had that World Cup in 2018 where he's just put all of them together. Thomas Johan and Roman de Grange both falling on that 14 move, as did Max Rudiger and Taito Nakagami and Sasha Lehmann and Basti Halenka. Really disappointing days for them, ditto Han-Woo Kim. Over on the women's side, Jane Kim, the only climber to top the route. She was the last climber out. Did a brilliant job of it. She'll be joined in the final by Jessie Pilch, Anja Gambra, Hannah Schubert, Natsumi Hirano, Catherine Chung, Mina Markovic and Katja Bosch. What a final that promises to be. Meiko Taki and Mia Krampel narrowly missing out. And a bit further down the order, Manon Ely, who's been having a good season in 2018. It'll just be the 2 finals out of 5 World Cups for her. It was 2 from 4. Now 2 from 5. She misses out. Molly Thompson-Smith back from injury in 16th place. Ellen Janiko in 17th. And Sophie Koller will be disappointed with that in 18th. And Miho Nanako still, I think, struggling with that shoulder injury down there in 21st. And Christine Chantry, disappointing day for her in 26th. So, Josh, your first experience here in Kranj, how's it been?
Oh, it's truly incredible. I mean, just the fact that this World Cup has been here for so many years, it kind of has this almost historic aura of being here. And it's just an honor to be here, climb on these walls, see the competitors go up, and just be able to experience along with them.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you along as ever, and pleasure to have you guys at home watching as well. We will see you tomorrow, 6 p.m. 1800 Central European Time for the finals. You do not want to miss out. We'll see you then. Thank you for watching.